Okay, so this is the video of the game that I worked on before Comic-Con. Comic-Con Portugal had its second edition at the end of 2015. And we were there with this game. This game was done in 3.5 weeks. The owners of the company came to me and said, we want to present something that's big, that's going to create a lot of engagement from the community. But we only have 4 weeks, not even 4 weeks, because we can only pick this up at Thursday. So is it possible? And in my mind I was thinking, obviously not, there's not enough time. So I said, yeah, let's do it. And because the thing was, after 3.5 weeks, I knew that we were gonna have something amazing. And that's a huge boost, both in morale. Also, we get the opportunity to try a few things that we didn't try before. So this is the reaction of people playing. Once we got the game working, Friday we didn't have enough game controllers because this plays with 4 controllers on a PC. But after we got this working, basically there was a non-stop flood of people trying the game, which was awesome because we got to get some real quick feedback. We got to see the expressions of the people when they played. And the original idea, they said, was we need to do something that's going to be multiplayer. So it's just a 1-minute video. It does have sound from João Mascarenhas, who's a Portuguese, a Porto-based sound designer. Primeira imagem, por favor. I said first image, please. Okay, so this was record time development, and it was quite cool because there was not a lot of time to design the game right away before we start production, because we had to start production as soon as possible, and we had to think about methods of simplifying everything as best as we could. So the first thing I did was, whoops, sorry. I'll keep talking. I like this.
Second image?
Yeah, underscore 13. Eu sei isso. Open with. Sorry. Here's the thing. We had these few prototypes that I'll eventually show. They're very basic sort of prototypes. And when we wanted to do something, there we are. The first thing we did was we designed the characters because we knew that we were going to have 4 people playing the game at all times, and that meant that not only were we going to have 4 people, everything had to happen in the same screen, because this wasn't a remote multiplayer; it was a local multiplayer game. So when you play a game like Call of Duty or Battlefield, that gun in front of you, that's you, right? But if you play a game in which you can see the other characters as well, and you far away, you have to be able to tell which character you are. So the design of the characters is very important for people to be able to read who they were and where they were on the screen. So because they're meant to be different, we knew they were going to have to be class-based, and we created the classes based on the mechanics we want to provide the player. We wanted to have a character that used a shotgun, and the closer he was to the enemy, the more damage it'd make, okay? Because a shotgun has that sort of property. We also wanted someone to have a sort of medium range, sort of the jack of all trades, the mid-ground kind of player, which would have a machine gun or a rifle. So that would be the soldier, and then we also wanted a sniper. The sniper's idea was that the shot would be perfect from one side to the screen to the other. So if you shot someone at the other end of the level, they would still get 100% damage on their character. And the last one was the bomber, which was the guy that would be doing splash damage. So if you were hiding behind a box or behind a wall, we could still aim at the ground and cause damage because we were close to the explosion. So those were the base for the classes of the game. With that in mind, I had to design the character that would look like he was sort of that attitude. So this was the first sketches that we did. This is the second iteration, so you can see the soldier now has a different kind of hat. The flanker is supposed to be the guy with a shotgun, the one that goes onto the enemy, so he had to look a little more aggressive with a bandana on the head. Then we had the sniper, which at this stage I wanted to do sort of an urban sniper because we weren't still sure of what the level was going to look like. And then we have the bomber, which we wanted to be big because he's going to be doing a lot of explosions. Also, he has more health than the other characters, but he does move a little slower, so that makes him a big target because he's such a dangerous enemy. And this is the final iteration. So the soldier, the idea was that he was a proper soldier, like he followed the rules. So he always has this sort of proper pose like he's in a parade. The flanker, we made him really muscly, had a beard. The beards were really in fashion. They're still pretty much in fashion, that's why I keep one. But we changed the bandana a little bit. We made it a baseball cap because the 2 little things of the bandana, the scarf, because they were so small on the screen, they would be like noisy, so that kind of solved it. And the sniper, we gave him a cape so that his silhouette was completely different from everyone else. Also, we covered the face to make him a little more stealthy. And we changed the bomber to a female just because. And just because it kind of plays along with this sort of female, the strength of the sex thing, and it just gave him more attitude. When the bomber killed someone, the sound you heard was, you know, like teasing you. Like, you got beaten by a girl. And the illustrations ended up acting as the avatars for the interface so that you knew which character you were. And we planned this in the way that we made a frame for the TV that we took to Comic-Con, and each of the faces on the frame were aligned with the faces on the interface, also with the controller. So the first controller was the soldier, the second controller was the bomber, the third was the sniper, and eventually the flanker was the last one. When we did the 3D models, my thing was, I need to produce these really quick. So they basically have the same size, because then I can reuse the same skeleton, because we need to put a skeleton inside of the model so we can animate it. And they all use the same base mesh, but at this point they all use this sort of Vitruvian man pose, the one that you see in the Leonardo da Vinci, I was going to say Leonardo DiCaprio, Leonardo da Vinci drawing, because that's easier for both, not only for us to model, because it's modeling in the orthogonal axis, so it's straight X and Y axis. Because if you did a different pose, that would be a diagonal. That's kind of fiddly to model. And it's also good to rig the model. When you put the skeleton inside and you do the way, it's complicated stuff, but it's easy to do it this way. So you can see by the mesh, this is low polygon modeling, which are very popular in video games because it requires less processing power from the computer. So you can see that the amount of cuts that I have on the mesh are pretty similar to each other. One thing I did was also, I made a pair of hands and boots, and I just copied them to all the models, because modeling hands is very annoying and very tiresome. It takes a lot of time, so I just did one set and everyone got the same hands. So even the lady has big man hands. But the idea is that I just changed the scale in some of the parts of the model so that they look muscly or like they're wearing clothing. And we also shared the skeletons, so they're all the same height, but they look to have different heights because, for example, the flanker has this more of aggressive pose where he's a little lower, and it kind of looks different from the sniper, which is the only one that actually tilts the head because of the scope on the sniper rifle. And then the bomber obviously carries the weapon on the shoulder, unlike any other character. So they were all pretty distinct. And this is kind of the process of creating the character. That's the model, how it looked in 3D Studio Max, which was the software that I used. And that's what it looks like in game. So if you look at the boots, there's no detail on the texture. It's just black, okay? Because I knew that the lighting and the shading that I was going to use in game, because of the engine that we use, Unity, I would still get some lighting and some rim effects that would still, people would still read that as a leather boot. So there's a lot more detail inside the game engine than outside. And now, because the game is finished, we released it for Comic-Con in a very proudly to say record time. Now we're considering creating the final version of the game. And that means that I have to do an extra detail pass. And this is pretty much the model of the flanker and the bomber in ZBrush. I don't know if you guys ever heard of ZBrush. It's a 3D sculpting software, and I've had horrible relationships with ZBrush because I never had a project that required me to actually, learn how to use ZBrush. And at this point, I decided that this was the perfect time to do it. After a long night of a long time of one-night stands and horrible breakups, I decided to give this relationship another chance, and I'm pretty happy with the results. This is the before and after of the flanker inside of the Unity engine. So the one on the left was the one that we released in Comic-Con. The one on the right is the one that we have right now. Which, if you can see, for example, the muscles and the folds on the clothing, they all respect the light. If I move the light, the folds change. If the lighting was just on the texture, it would stay the same regardless of the lighting. So these are all the other models. You can see the soldier now has a different hat because the hat wasn't different enough. It was also a cap like the flanker hat. And I wanted to have something bigger on the head because the heads are really big. Because a small character on the screen, the proportions can't be realistic because then you would only have sort of like a noisy tiny little head, so it made the heads really big. I also did a different shader for the hair on the bomber so that it looks a little bit more like hair. And there's other stuff that we use, like the fact that the belt on the bomber is black is to help separate the arm from the body so that it reads a little bit more. And this is the first prototype that Ricardo Magalhães, which is the programmer, did. This is what it looked like. It's a proof of concept of the behavior, how we would move around the character and shoot projectiles. And this is the first screenshot of the actual multiplayer version that I brought into the office. We installed this on 4 computers and we had to go create a local LAN. We were able to play and shoot at each other. And then we decided to start doing a mock-up. Mock-ups for video games are very important because they give you a lot of information. So I know how big the level has to be, and because of the size of the screen. This was full HD, but we knew that it had to be this size. And that allows me to see how big the characters are going to be. And that allows me also to, this was done before I designed the characters. That's why everyone kind of looks like the flanker. Because it's the same model. It's the same drawing with different colors. So basically, we decided that the characters had to be those proportions so that they read well and they're very visible in the game. And also deciding the size of the map. Now, we realized at this point that the importance of the map is not how it looks, but the obstacles and how do you move in the level. Because there's never a point in this game where you're actually hiding. You can never hide and everyone can always see you, so there's no point in hiding. We wanted people to move around, so it's a very fast-paced game and very action-based. And then I do a 3D block out, we call it a block out. And I could import this into Unity so we could move the character around, see if the spaces were wide enough for characters to move, if players would be bumping against the pillars or the boxes. So we kind of had this idea. This was very complicated for what we actually eventually ended up doing. But the interface, we're already looking at the interface, and you can see that the level has specific cuts so that the player never goes underneath the interface. So I'd rather take space away from the level than have the interface cover up the characters. So that was also very important. Then, because this was meant to be done fast, I thought I'm going to do something based on modules. Okay, so pieces of map that I can replicate so that I don't have to model the whole thing. These were the first ones that we tested. The box actually made it. This is the box that we use in game, but everything else I kind of scrapped because I wasn't really feeling the look. And because this was such a short period project, I decided in a weekend to spend the weekend modeling new assets for the new level. So these are all the base mesh pieces that we use. So that's the door, the pillars, and the wall. And then once you put it together and start texturing, this is what it starts to look like, okay? So the texture on the ground is the only one that is mirrored. I make half and then I mirror it because the full HD is 1920. So it's close to 2048, which is the power of 2 textures size. Very game stuff, but the point is it's high resolution, it's close to the resolution on the screen, and if you mirror it, you can actually get double the resolution without spending a bigger file size. These are the textures that we used. And the way that I did the textures was I just created base textures like a metal texture, a cement texture, a plastic texture, and I just put them all into Photoshop and erase the parts that I didn't want. So again, it's just because it's faster production. I could have done better looking textures, but I didn't have the time. And this is what the level looks like inside of 3D Studio Max, not inside of Unity, just inside of 3D Studio Max with some lights. And you can see that the walls are pretty much repeated, okay? But for the player, he's not gonna, because again, this is a character base and you wanna shoot at the target, you don't care about the walls. So we were able to get away with this. And this is the screenshot of the game as it actually plays. So again, you see the avatars or the portraits of the characters that I did initially as the indicator of which character it is, and then you have a life bar. And the sizes are weird because this is from a build that was designed for a smaller screen. But you had a counter for the number of people that you killed and the number of times that you died. And there was also a countdown in the screen. And I think this is the last screenshot. No, okay, so now we're moving forward. We want to create some different levels. So in this case, this level, we were exploring the idea of having lighting on the level. But if, for example, if I play a game and there's a light, first thing I do is I shoot it. And if the light doesn't break, I get disappointed because I expect the game to really, expect me to shoot stuff. Like there was a game that had a barrel and I went like that with my gun and the barrel didn't fall down. I was kind of disappointed because I thought I was going to set fire to the enemies. And they didn't think about that. So this is a level that plays around with that. Not only do you have holes on the ground, you also have lights that you can probably shoot, and then that area of the level becomes dark. So it's kind of a place where people can hide. So it's kind of a trick. And then another level that uses different theme, because these are going to be 10-minute They're going to be 1 minute rounds, but each play is going to be 10 levels. So if you don't refresh the view, then the player gets a little bit bored. You don't want to change the player, or you don't want to change the behavior of the player, because the person who's playing expects that to stay the same. But we want to change the layout, we want to change the colors and the theme so that it's a refreshing effect on the game. Also, we played around with the idea of having levels that actually move. So these parts of these fighter jets are going to be moving. So not only do you have something that's blocking you right now, but 5 seconds later it will actually be open so you can move. You can wait for a shot. For example, you could be standing in one place, and once the object goes away, you can shoot your enemy, and points to who can tell which jet this is. It's an F-15. Okay. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And that was it.
Hi.
Okay.
How big was the team that worked on it?
Well, it's just me and another guy. So it's me doing the art and another guy doing the programming. And then Delphine was just sitting in the audience, and another guy was just pretty much giving ideas, but they didn't actually went in and do anything. But this was based, well, not practically do anything, but they did provide some good feedback. The thing was, was based on already a prototype that we were playing around with, but it was just boxes moving. They didn't have the differentiated aspects of each character, so no classes. It was just a box that shot projectiles. So we had to create that from scratch, and all of the models were also created from scratch. So yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was really, really fun. It's probably the most fun game that I've ever worked on, and I've worked in a few. Anything else? Yes?
How is the game now?
Well, the game is pretty much the same as it was at Comic-Con. So you can jump on the game, you can shoot people, but which is always fun if you don't do it for real. But the idea is that we want to add more features. Like we want every character to have a secondary attack. Like the flanker is going to have a knife attack because he gets so close to the opponent. That's his gameplay mechanic. But for example, the bomber is going to leave a mine on the ground. If you walk on it, it explodes. The sniper is going to have a cloak ability, like it's going to be invisible. But the problem is that it becomes invisible for everyone else, but also for you, so you don't know where you are when you become invisible. Because everyone is playing on the same screen. We figured that was a limitation that we had initially, because we thought we can't do it because everyone has to play on the same computer. We can't have remote gameplay because we're not sure if there was going to be another person on the other side to play. Not only that, we didn't have the ability to program that feature into the game. But we realized that the one-screen aspect of the game is actually the differentiating factor, is the unique selling point of the game. The fact that you can see everyone every time, and then everyone can see you. So there was never a situation, except for this little girl who said, I'm going to hide behind this pillar, because let me just show you the screenshot again real quick. These 4 pillars were created exactly for that. You can hide behind them, but every character has something that tells where they are. So, for example, the soldier has the red laser, the sniper has the green laser, the flanker also has that cone, which actually shows you where you're causing damage. So outside that cone, you're not causing any damage. So the girl was actually using the bomber, and she hid behind one of the pillars, but you could still see the health bar. That green thing next to her, that's the health bar. And people could still see it, still getting shot. She got pretty mad at it. But the idea was that you could still have that illusion of hiding, but you're really never hidden, because if someone explodes a bomb next to you, then you're going to get a knockback, you're going to move out of cover, so again, it'll be visible. So yeah, there's a lot of features that we want to add that we think. Also, we're going to add 4 more classes, so 4 different characters. And after that, it's going to be very tough to come up with characters that are different, because we've sort of explored almost everything. So we're going to have a flame guy that shoots flames. Another one is going to do a shock, but the shock is not like a projectile. It locks onto you, and even if you run away, the shock is still going to follow unless you move away, like really far away. And a guy that does not have a weapon except for a sword, so that's a melee kind of character, but he also has a shield, so that's kind of cool. You can still attack him from behind, which is kind of weird. But that's it, the characters. That's all what we want to add to the game. Anyone else? Yes.
But is the game out, like to the public?
It's not yet out. We really want to make a demo, even if it's just a beta demo that we can send to people, because it's very important that we get data. Summer? Yeah, maybe this summer we'll have the game out, at least the demo out. because it's very important to us to get data from people, see how many times do they die, if we need to up the health points on a specific character because that character dies more than any of the others. So it's analytic, it's data analysis that we need to get. But yeah, pretty much around the summer, I think we'll have something outside, and we're going to start by getting some beta testers, start a small community so that we can have people on the servers. Yes, sorry.
Where did you get the inspiration from?
Sorry?
Inspiration.
There's a few games that I play there aren't exactly like this, but do have the class feature. One of my favorite class-based games is, for example, Team Fortress 2, which is a game by Valve Software. It's a huge game, and they chose a very specific art style, which is based in the 50s. Stuff like from Norman Rockwell, and the other guy, I don't know his name, Lock something, I forget, but he's also very cool. And because they're also class-based, when they designed the characters, they made them really, really different. But it's not a game that is viewed in this view. It's viewed from a first person, like a Battlefield or a Call of Duty. So the silhouettes are more important than the colors or the hair. Even the colors, obviously there's people who are colorblind, and we still had to make the shapes different. We couldn't just rely on the colors. But Team Fortress does pull this off beautifully by doing silhouette. If you just get the silhouettes of the characters lined up, you can still tell which one it is. For example, the heavy weapons guy carries a minigun. He's very big, very fat. He's taller than anyone else, and he's very fat, and he carries the weapon like this, like really low. So you can really tell who it is. Also, he's bald, which makes him really cool. Anything else other than that? I would say that in terms of style, there's a lot of old games that had these proportions. For example, oh man, I just remember the Vikings, a really old game, 3 Vikings, you probably have never heard of it, called The Lost Vikings, I think it was. They sort of had these proportions and they're very cool. But you have a question?
Sure. When you guys, release it to the public, have you thought about, like, are you going to require 4 controllers or a way to 4 people?
No, we hope not to. We hope that the first version that we release, we actually release remote multiplayer. So you can play with the keyboard and the mouse. But we want everyone to play with the keyboard and with the mouse at that server. We don't want someone with a controller playing against someone with a keyboard and mouse, because I think keyboard and mouse is a little easier to aim. Even though people didn't seem to complain, even with a sniper, which is fiddly to aim because it has to be really precise, people were still able to actually win the game quite a lot of times with a sniper. Even the game was broken and the soldier was the strongest one, but it was still kind of easy to aim. Anything else? Okay, I guess that's it. Okay, thank you so much.